United States engages in a number of operations to go after al-Qaeda and their militant allies, their terrorist allies, who would try to attack the United States. What this incident makes clear is that this country has to continue to remain vigilant against those that would seek to attack this country. And we will do everything necessary to keep America safe.
Not a lot of details from the Defense Secretary Leon Panetta today about this thwarted plot. U.S. officials saying they believe that Ibrahim al-Asiri, top target in Yemen, was tied to this plot. He's considered one of the best bomb makers working today because he uses this non-metallic explosives called PETN. You don't need a lot of it, and you can get through metal detectors. Apparently, there was a suicide bomber that was thwarted by the CIA before he got on a U.S. airliner. Now, this happens apparently sometime, but the president is briefed in mid-April. This is the statement from the NSC. While the president was assured that the device did not pose a threat to the public, he directed the Department of Homeland Security and law enforcement and intelligence agencies to take whatever steps necessary to guard against this type of attack. This disruption of this IED plot underscores the necessity of remaining vigilant against terrorism here and abroad. Now, to continue this, around the anniversary of the Osama bin Laden killing, this is what U.S. officials were saying at the time.
As we've said publicly, there is no credible reporting right now that there is an active plot underway to coincide with the anniversary of the bin Laden takedown. But the counterterrorism community is used to making sure that we're as vigilant as possible to guard against any efforts on the part of al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups to mark such a day.
We have no specific or credible information about anything, pinned to the one-year anniversary. But as always, we ask Americans to be vigilant.
The intelligence chairs up on Capitol Hill say they were just briefed about an hour ago on this. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Charles Lane, opinion writer for the Washington Post. And syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Steve, what do you make of this?
Well, as you say, there's a lot more we don't know than what we know. I mean, clearly, it seems to me that the administration is saying several different things, and maybe they'll find a way in the next couple days to explain, to put this all in context. I was struck by the comments from both John Brennan and from Secretary Napolitano that they had very specific language. They said, we don't know that anything is underway. We don't know that anything is set to coincide with the anniversary of the killing of bin Laden. Those are two sort of escape hatches in their language if you're talking about it. I mean, it may be the case that when John Brennan gave that interview on Fox News Sunday, this had already been thwarted, in which case it wouldn't have been underway.
Well, let me interrupt you, because around that time, there was a background briefing. Senior counterterrorism officials asked if another device had been picked up anywhere, because there was some rumor that that had happened. That was denied. The senior counterterrorism official said, I'm not familiar with any report about a bomb in the last 6 months. Catherine Herridge actually asked, so nothing's been intercepted or picked up around this time? And this answer was, not that I know of, no.
Yeah. Again, I think they're being vague with their language there. But look, the lesson for the administration, if you look back at a series of these, whether it was the underwear bomber, whether it was the Fort Hood shooting, is not to say too much in these first few hours. They need to do everything they can to give out good and accurate information. But remember, President Obama, 3 days after the failed bombing of the airliner over Detroit, said that he thought it was the work of an isolated extremist, and we later found out that this was a bomb that was supplied, in fact, by the same Asiri who we believe made this bomb. So there are a lot of details that we don't know. We're sure to find out more, but they have some cleanup work to do, I think, quickly.
Chuck, listen, first of all, the credit goes to the intelligence officials who thwart these things every day, the things we know about and the things we don't know about. So on one side, obviously, a lot of people say this is comforting. On the other side, there's some kind of jumble about who knew what when, and is that comforting?
Well, let's put it this way, there's still a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers. And one of the things I find puzzling in their statement is the president was assured that the device did not pose a threat to the public. Now stop and think about that. What kind of bomb does not pose a threat to the public? I'd like to know what that means. If it didn't pose a threat to the public, why were they worried about it? So this whole way the information has come out, it seems to me very murky, and in that sense not reassuring. I think they got to move quickly to clean the whole the whole storyline up.
Charles.
You said all the credit goes to the intelligence community. I think not. Look at the statement. The president assured us that the device would not pose a threat, and he directed the Departments of Homeland Security, etc., to take whatever steps are necessary to guard against this type of attack. That puts him at the center of this, as with everything else he's done. That was an attempt at irony. Apparently, it fell completely flat, but I'll continue. What's odd about this is that when Catherine Herridge asked her question, clearly they were saying there's been nothing in 6 months. The best face you can put on all this, and what's probably is true, is they were lying because their plot had been disrupted, but the knowledge wasn't out there, and they were trying to use the extra time before it becomes a public issue to use whatever intelligence they had to track whoever they wanted to track down. I would say, in contrast with what happened with the bin Laden raid, in which in the midst of all the boasting, they told us they'd gotten a trove of intelligence, including safe houses, which was a signal to every bad guy on the planet to go and move and call allied vans immediately. So at least here it looks as if they were at least hiding information, it would make sense, and I think it'd be something that you could say was right to do if you were using before it became a public event to garner information and to get other terrorists.
Steve, you're a transparency guy. You say it should all be out there. For somebody flying in between mid-April and now, should they have been alerted to this possibility?
No, I mean, the obvious huge exception to the transparency rule is if it affects ongoing intelligence operations, and that's what the administration is claiming.
Although the bin Laden raid, as Charles mentioned, could have affected ongoing intelligence operations at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go back to the bin Laden raid, I think the administration had to offer some kind of a story about what happened when Osama bin Laden was killed. Maybe they didn't need to provide as many details as they did, but they needed to have some kind of a story. I think the bigger risk to them in this case, and we'll see where this goes, again, we don't have a lot of information, is that it seems the administration has done a great deal of minimizing the war on terror over the past several weeks, maybe months. You remember Joe Biden said, the Taliban is not our enemy per se. Just 2 weeks ago, National Journal quoted a senior State Department official declaring that the war on terror was over. You've had these kind of statements repeatedly. There was a front page story in the Washington Post today saying that the United States government had decided to release high-level and very risky detainees in an effort to create peace with the Taliban. You have a series of events that suggest that the administration believes that the threat isn't as great as it has been, and yet you have people like Dianne Feinstein, who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee. You have Mike Rogers, who chairs the House Intelligence Committee, coming back from a trip to Afghanistan saying they were told that the Taliban is in fact stronger than it was before the surge. The administration risks being seen as not taking these threats seriously enough, particularly if one of these actually goes through.
All right, politics and messaging aside, it's important to point out that this is an evolution, if it's accurate, in the explosive. And PETN, a cap like this, could explode this table. And you could be seeing a change in the bomb making that we're seeing from al-Qaeda.
And it also it tells us again that the center of gravity of al-Qaeda is no longer in Pakistan, Afghanistan, it's in Yemen. And that's why people are questioning if we ought to be in Afghanistan if the bad guys have changed address.